equitable right to sustainable development. I don't have time to really discuss right now on that, but I think there's a lot of discussion we carry in India on this. And then, of course, how to avoid the long-term lock-ins. In the short term, we are more looking at the co-benefits and the capacity building. In India, the short term is going up to 2020, and that we already have various national missions which are going on, which are already announced as a part of the National Climate Change Action Plan of India. And then we have been cooperating with the various instruments which are coming from the Framework Convention, which are like CDM and NAMAs and others. And then, of course, we are also joining a lot of multilateral initiatives which are coming up. And that, of course, while looking at the 2 degrees centigrade will also require a lot of adaptation, especially when we are studying a great deal of the movements in the Himalayan glaciers and also the other vulnerable systems in India, and the preparedness for adaptation, and also that is a co-benefit issue, because you prepare for climate change, well, you also prepare for a lot of other kind of disasters at the same time, and so that is the alignment that we are trying to do. So this is an overarching idea of the kind of things that we are planning to do in India now and going up to 2020 and 2050. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Shukura, for highlighting India's action. And while India continues to grow fast, but at the same time, he pointed out the need for avoiding lock-ins to high carbon growth. And for that matter, already India has begun to take actions like perform, achieve, and trade initiatives for reducing or raising energy efficiency, but at the same time introducing market mechanisms to allow companies to trade energy efficiency certificates. And a similar program has been introduced for renewable energy certificates. Again, the trading platform has already been introduced. And also significant investment are now being planned for example, in the field of, in the sector of transport. And also, I thank Professor Shukra for highlighting alternative 2 degrees Celsius mitigation scenarios, which he called as a sustainable approach, aligning climate and sustainable development actions. This is, I believe, a very important thinking that also needs to be considered by many other developing countries. Thank you very much. And then now I'd like to ask Professor Rizal Dibor. He's Executive Director, Center for Climate Risk and Opportunity Management in Southeast Asia and Pacific, Bogor Agricultural University from Indonesia. Professor Rizal, please.
Thank you, Professor Hamanaka. So I would like to start my presentation by giving you an overview about the current situation of the emission, also the projection of our emission in the future under the BAU. So as you know, Indonesia is one of the world's 10 largest greenhouse gas emitters, which we emit about 1.3 million tons of CO2 equivalent in 2000, and then it's going up into 1.9 million tons CO2 equivalent in 2002. So there is a growth about 5.7. But if we look at there, and there are, during the period 2000-2005, there is a sudden increase in our emission. It's particularly because of the peat fires. So fires one also the main source also of the emission in Indonesia. And then we look at the projection, and then also quite clear that the forestry sector, the LULUCF, still a major contributor of the emission. But however, we can see quite clearly the contribution of the energy sector will increase quite significant. But to address this, actually, the government of Indonesia already issued the presidential regulation number 61, 2011, that we have a commit to reduce our emission by 26% in 2020 from the BAU emission, and then up to 41% with the international support. And in addition to that, we also issued another presidential regulation number 71, 2011, for developing good national greenhouse gas inventory system to ensure that how actually the performance of the local government and sector in reducing emission following the presidential regulation number 61. Sorry, it doesn't work. So now I would like to focus my presentation now on the forestry sector. Okay. Yep. So if we look at the per capita emission of Indonesia, I think for the energy sector, it is still below 0.5 ton carbon per capita. And then if we include other sectors, excluding the UNU-IAS, it's going up into almost 0.6 ton carbon per capita. And then if we include all the source, and then the per capita emission close into 2 ton carbon per hectare, it is quite higher compared to others developing countries. So now before I talk on the policies from the government, how actually we are going to reduce the emission from forestry sector, so I would like to give an overview about the forest condition. And then we can see there is actually, sorry, this technical problem bit. So yeah, so there is quite significant decrease in terms of our rate of deforestation from 1989 to 2009. So in the period of 1989 into 2001, the rate of deforestation is 1.1% per year. But because of some of the policies being imposed, then our deforestation is decreased quite significant to 2.55% per year. But still, if we look at the rate of deforestation, actually it's quite high in the production forest. But in 2009, the remaining forest cover in Indonesia is left is only 52%, which is more than half of that. It is quite degraded quite seriously. So what actually government are going to do, and there are a number of key policies actually already in place. One of the important key policies actually the improving institutional system for managing forest resources, and through the establishment of forest management unit. As you know that nowadays less than half of the forest area in the country has no management unit at the site level, because most of the areas actually managed by the concession. When the concession finishes, and then the areas become open access, and that's become a problem that so the communities start to encroach into the area. So now by having this kind of policy, so none of the forest area will have no management unit. So the management will be permanent in all forest area. But of course, it is huge effort need to be done for that. But in this case, we need about 600 forest management units for the whole forest area in Indonesia. And then the government now increased the target per year to establish about 12 to 24 units per year. It is part of the commitment under the Presidential Regulation number 61. So it will cost the government of Indonesia about $2.7 billion to establish about this 600 forest management unit. And the second key policy is the introducing the mandatory forest certification system. Actually, this is for limit the trading of illegal log and pushing adoption of sustainable forest management practices. And then we can see here, after the issuance of that policy, there is an increasing number of concessions have been certified. But if we look at the performance, even though there are still many of the forest concession, the performance is quite poor, but by having this kind of certification, we give time for them to improve from the worst into a better level. So in this context, if they are unable to achieve that, and then their concession will be terminated. And then another important policies. Government also issued also in the process of drafting government regulation on protected atmospheric function. So in this regulation, there is possibility that all the companies who actually make use of the land and forest resources will limit their emission. So there's introduction of the emission cap. So by having this kind of regulation, we expect that all the private sector who actually obliged for having an environmental impact assessment need to report and the document about the emission cap that need to be estimated.